This will be the biggest panel you guys see in the history of Immerse.
I'm short.
Make yourselves comfortable.
Lights are too bright.
The lights are bright, yeah. I joke that we look like S Club 7 up here with so many of us. But thank you, everyone, for joining. This is a headsets and hardware panel. We're here to talk about all things headsets, hardware, and everything in between. And as you can see, we have quite a few experts up on stage. I won't even try to introduce you all, but I will let you go one by one, maybe starting with Lisa, because everyone is familiar because you were just up.
Is my mic on? OK. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Watts. I'm the independent on the panel today. I was at Intel for 25 years and just recently departed Magic Leap. So I think I'm the, what do you call it, the independent hardware person.
Yeah. Tony?
All right. Tony Wang. I'm the co-founder of Agora. So we basically embedded inside the headsets for the audio-video real-time global sync and delivery.
Hi, everybody. Brian Vogelsang. I work with Qualcomm. I lead our efforts with Snapdragon Spaces and developer and ecosystem work we're doing.
Hi, I'm Jason Gholston, Senior Director at Ecosystem Solutions, and also work with our partners to get really great software running on our new device.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Pearly from HTC. I lead investments for our ecosystem efforts, and you might know us from our award-winning headsets like the amazing Vive Pro 2, Vive Focus 3, Vive Flow, and so much more coming.
Hard to follow that one. Tim Bates, I am the global CTO for Tech Vertical for Lenovo. And my claim to fame is basically helping companies figure out their strategic goals with technology and software.
Cool. And for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Vanessa. I work with Tony at Agora. I am the Director of Social, Gaming, and Metaverse, which is a very wide net. But we work very closely with a lot of these people on stage. So we're looking forward to diving into some cool topics today. And let's start. I've got my list here. I would love to know, sometimes we talk about weight, and we talk about all of the things that come along with the hardware itself. But maybe we'll start with Pearly.
Oh.
Yeah? What do you think has been the most difficult part of the development process at HTC when it comes to headsets?
When it comes to headset,
Yeah.
wow, it's really figuring out how to get smaller, more compact, more comfortable, more inclusive, too, so that women, people with different head accessories can also enjoy the amazing technology and don't feel excluded. I think that was a good example when Vive Flow, for example, was introduced. All of a sudden, women feel much more included in enjoying these headsets without messing up their makeup or their hair, and people wearing turban can all of a sudden wear these headsets comfortably. So that direction of making sure that these incredible technologies that come initially with a huge amount of setup, right, need to get much more accessible for user experience, and that's what we've been really, really focused on.
Cool. Jason, up on the stool next.
Well, so the ideas come perfectly formed right out of the gate, and we just execute. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of iteration, and both on the hardware form factor, taking human factors into consideration, but beyond just that feel, expanding, getting the immersion up, getting the comfort level up, so that you have a device that you're comfortable wearing for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're working. That's where we're targeting, because we see it as a tool for doing work to do better, faster, safer, more efficient. And so there's the hardware piece, but obviously there's all that software ecosystem and building the trust around that and making that story and that compelling, easy, and rewarding for our partners.
And Lisa, as independent, having worked for a few of the names, what do you think in terms of the development process? What's the most difficult?
Well, I think it's science and physics are the biggest problem, right? So, at the end of the day, at Intel we lived and breathed Moore's law, right? Which is actually a financial model where we were talking about, the size of, the chipsets, coming down or going up while, the number of transistors we could put on a chip going up while the price is going down, right? So the main thing is when is, as science and physics and chemistry continue to evolve and we're able to make smaller and smaller chips that are more and more powerful, that are less expensive, that then influences all the components that all of these guys can then, from Magic Leap to Lenovo to, there's Pico to, the size of projectors, the kinds of, compute that you can have. Can you rely on a compute on a phone, or do you have so much going on you actually still need a separate CPU to run this? And I think that's the huge, beyond what Pearly said about HUC and Jason was saying about Magic Leap, those are the key things that we all need. Everyone wants to have that thin and light sunglasses version of this or that, but we're really bounded by science at the end of the day.
And when we talk about chips then over at Qualcomm, what do you think in the development process for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just echo what everyone else has said. It's always a series of trade-offs when you're building any device. So you could start with a form factor and try and say, okay, what can I do in this with these form factor constraints? Or you can sort of say, I want to start with this user experience. What sort of form factor do I need to build to achieve this user experience? So I think it's just power and thermal profiles, and you have a power budget, and everything takes power, the displays and the sensors and the processor and the connectivity. And so, one of the biggest challenges is just, okay, how do you either build a device specifically for a use case, and then it ends up, being more tailored specifically to that thing, or you try and build something a little bit more generic, and then in order to use the whole spectrum of use cases, you're probably going to have to be a little bit bigger, or maybe make some trade-offs that paint you into a corner. So.
And Tony, I guess from an Agora perspective, building with clients and with partners in mind, for us, what do you think has been the most difficult process when trying to develop with headsets in mind?
Yeah, well, I think the hardest problem is probably the synchronization, because this is not one single vendor, right? He have to bet on certain chipset. Maybe he will bet on next year it will be speech to text, and he will add in the machine learning chip into it. However, the consumer we are powering may not go that direction. It might go something entertainment or collaboration, right? So it's almost like we're missing a global level roadmap when we can coordinate everybody's effort. At this moment, everybody is betting on the baccarat table, right? They are betting on, okay, how much spec I need to be. Educated guess, right? But, one of the challenges we have seen in any innovation technology is your wishful thinking is always ahead of 10 to address market, right? So if we have a more collaborated kind of like a console, hopefully this event would be, that we can say, okay, here's what we see on the market from consumer side, right? And here's what that kind of innovation would need: the form factor, the battery life, the chipset down next 2-3 years. The other challenge about hardware is takes 2 years on the hardware, takes 1 more year on us to build it, and 1 more year to the consumer side, maybe 1 more year to save the money. So you're talking about 5 years. If you're wrong, you are wrong. You don't have another chance to explain to the board why you're wrong, right? 5 years, you're gone, right? So I think that global synchronization is probably the hardest one facing everybody. Everything else can be kind of resolved internally, like, let's make it more effective, let's make it more pretty, let me go ahead getting 10 more customer building whatever use case on Agora SDK, but that global synchronization on the roadmap needs and estimation, common consensus, where we should be going at what time, which one goes first. That's another thing. Oftentimes I saw go-to-market effort that is basically all correct, except the order is wrong.
Interesting. Well, we'll start with you for the next question then, Tim.
Okay.
What is the most important lesson that you've learned with your career at GM and now being at Lenovo along the way? What is maybe the hardest lesson, the most important lesson, when it comes to the development of the technology?
Well, I guess it comes down to basically when you're looking at the technology, you have to look at it as in its infancy stage. You can't look at it as basically the one-all, do-all. So from that standpoint, I was just talking to someone earlier about when you do your testing, it comes down to looking at some of the smaller type devices sometimes to do your prototyping, and then go into the bigger devices when you get to basically running your full development application. So the lessons I've learned is basically, don't go after the bigger things first. Try to do your prototyping in a small way, and then you can sell that up through the organization a lot easier. GM was a pretty hard rock to push up the hill, but how we did it was we started looking at, I'd have to say, gaming technology, and now we're looking at gaming technology that's running the entire industry, and it's a lot cheaper than the engineering stuff.
Very cool. And Lisa, I guess your unique perspective of having been with a big title name and then now being independent, what do you think your biggest lesson has been along the way, or that you'll take with you when you're doing your own business now?
Well, I think, to Tony's point, it does take time. And so also to Tim's point, doing things incrementally, I think is very important. And also setting proper expectations with customers and partners. And so basically, you know, delivering what you say you're going to deliver when you're going to deliver it. And don't change your strategy based on what you read on the treadmill this morning on the tech press. I mean, I see that quite a bit where everyone's so worried about what, you know, whether they got criticized in the press, whether they got, whether they got praised in the press. You have to really, I think, one of my former bosses at Intel, his name is Gregory Bryant. He's now president over at, I'm going to skip, he'll kill me for missing the company name, but it's been a long day.
Don't worry.
But he always had this kind of philosophy where, you know, you had those top priorities, whether they be 5 or they be 10, and you know, you have faith in what in your strategy and what you're working on. Get the information, but don't whip your teams or don't change the strategy every minute to try to respond to some whatever the latest headline is in the morning, and especially in trying to drive chipsets, right? I mean, the roadmaps before Tony even knows about them from a software side have already been being worked on for 5 years. So, you know, being able to make sure that you've got a flexibility, that's where the combination of hardware and software has to come along, and so working with the different standards bodies. And I think the last thing would be is, you know, encouraging companies to, you know, there's going to be lots of ways to monetize above the stack of all this stuff. Trying to carve out the steak too soon and making things not interoperable at the most foundational level is just hurting the entire industry, right? So it's one thing to try to drive to your particular, you know, point of view, but there has to be some level of interoperability for users to do the adoption. And that's why I'm so excited to see the many, many kinds of headsets and wearables that are coming out. Lots of them are not going to make it, but at least it's pushing the envelope. But at the bottom line, those key players need to think about just how far up can you go for compatibility, and then where can you know, where's your innovation going to head to innovate over the top for monetization? Because we have to make money. Nobody here is a charity.
Yeah, one of the guys on my product development team shared something with me. It was an ebook called The Dangerous Animals of Product Development, and if you haven't read it, I really suggest it because it talks about what you said, where you can whip your neck around really fast because one client who maybe will pay you a lot of money needs a certain feature, and you kind of throw all your tails to one way and you realize that you've made a mistake. So if you haven't read it, I do recommend it. And Jason, up on the stool, your biggest lesson.
I think I kind of keep coming back to this idea, there's this relentless focus on what your customer, what your users, what the people who actually are going to be using the thing actually say they want. Like, because it's easy to say. It's very easy, it's almost trite. But the thing is, to do it, to really practice it, it can be quite demanding and humbling, right? Because you may have just dumped who knows how many time on a best guess or educated guess on a particular feature or some tech stack or what have you, and then when in practice, when in the scrutiny, under the glaring scrutiny of actual use, you know, it turns out wrong, and to really own up to that and understand that, and then not lose track of the direction you want to head, but step back, evaluate, right? It's kind of a comment, but it's a tough one to get right. And
Brian over there, hiding behind the stool.
Yeah. So I think really one of the lessons is just persistence. We started working in augmented reality in 2007, you know, brought the first reference designs for AR and commercial devices to market in 2012, 2013, VR in 2014. It takes a long time. These are really, really hard problems, but the pace of innovation is accelerating now, and you know, we're starting to see the use cases emerge, the right product market fit in terms of matching form factors to use cases. And so, you know, it's just, we've stuck with it for 15 years, and, you know, we plan to continue, you know, beyond. So, so I think just, you know, stay with this tech. It's hard, but it is the future of computing. Yep.
And I guess leading on to that, when you talk about, you know, it's being hard, driving adoption is really difficult. There's so many headsets out there. There's consumer, then there's enterprise. Maybe we'll start with Tony over there. What do you think that you guys are doing, that we are doing at Agora, to help drive adoption for these types of technologies? How are we helping build awareness and getting people into the game?
Yeah, I just see we are kind of on the higher end of the thing, so you guys have to do 10 years of work before the startup would actually thinking about this, right? I actually thinking this is the industry requires insight and conviction, right, to her point, right? And that insight is not about, oh, it's another lighter version of the hardware. The insight is what it's about. I believe it's about our unsatisfied desire to better user experience. And I'm actually very happy this event is called Immerse. I believe that is at center of it, right? So if you believe that, that is Immerse. And Immerse needs, it cannot be just yourself, cannot be one person. That word has no fun. That is basically banished into Doctor Who's different university, right? So that requires collaboration, requires community, connections, right? And that is where we see used to be very hard. You have to be an expert to get all those things working. And remember, we're not just talking about one hardware platform. So Agora, in certain sense, act as three things, I think. A, it's a layer on top of the internet, make it easy, so you don't have to worry about the delay synchronization, right? That's number one. Number two, just looking at, sometimes it's a small community, you can see who else, other people are doing what, right? It's actually very easy to do. Third thing is almost, it's like a middleware to kind of fill the gap of all the hardware difference. There will be hardware difference, just admit it, right? But maybe the API, the SDK can abstract the layer. And we've been dealing with, throughout history, like over 6,000 of Android device, right? A lot of them are very similar, but I have to say maybe at least 1,000 requires us to do specific device adaptation, right? So that is a problem as an app developer, not hardware developer. App developer, he had to make sure as much headset can be used as possible. That is a tremendous task. You have to remember, maybe every type of headset, he only have a couple thousand users, right? It's not a massive product yet, right? So, kind of those are three things I can see, Agora as a fabric contribute to this immersed experience. But I would say probably the biggest one is to realize, to her point, what this is about. This is not about I make a fancy hardware, somebody will buy me, just like Oculus, right? It's probably different. It's really driven by our desire. And if you follow that route, I would say you will follow your Northern Star, right? Decide when you think about future, what feature is in, what feature is not in. That's probably my Northern Star. And that is actually what our Agora's Northern Star is. We believe the keyboard inside the thing won't be a virtual keyboard. It should be probably something different, right? All those things. So anyway, that is basically what we are doing. I don't think we do a good enough job. That's why you guys see me over here.
And Pearly, what about you guys? What are you guys doing, aside from obviously making the headsets more wearable, to really drive adoption?
I think the key really is to show value and deliver value, and the value is delivered and proven today. So of course we have big dreams and big vision of how this technology will impact humanity, society, our future generations in a very profound way. But there's also many ways and applications of this technology today that is making impact to bottom lines, to people's lives, to people's health, to learning outcome, to experiences everywhere. And so if we really put that at the center of everything we do, like I was talking about earlier, human first, and we were not a solution looking for a problem. We want to always keep in mind why we wake up every morning trying to advocate this technology in the field. What are we really trying to achieve? If we deliver value and value is being delivered today, then we help people understand why there's a reason to care about this new advent of technology. That's really important. And next is really, it's impossible to innovate in a vacuum, even for larger companies. It's really important to bring the ecosystem partners in. What that means is investing in partners big and small, in companies and founders building with very bold vision and kind heart. It's investing across the spectrum of what might not seem very obvious at the first sight, whether that's arts and culture, or that's helping create tools to empower creators to tell more stories. If we can empower more people to create, then it massively increase the value of the network and the impact of this technology. And this could be the vision that we want it to be, to unleash human imagination from the physical limitations of reality, but also create new ways that people globally can access experiences and participate economically too. So I think that value-driven approach, bringing the ecosystem in, are two very fundamental pillars that guide what we're doing.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else on your side? No?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
you,
definitely.
You looked at me, so I'm thinking you got something to say.
I like to add to the part of it's really about the people, and what we're doing at Lenovo is we're going into the communities and we're teaching individuals, the underrepresented,
Cool.
in communities to learn how to program. What we see is basically the metaverse is opening the door to a whole another or different class of developers. So people that are out working in McDonald's, working or cleaning streets or doing hairdressing, they can do programming because of the low-code implementation of Unreal or Unity from that standpoint. It's allowing them now to be into the tech industry. And so that's, following up what you're saying is basically adding the content developers, which that's the biggest problem that we normally have. We had that problem 20 years ago when we had the headsets, no content. Today we have lots of headsets and we still have limited content. So now we have to create those creative people to create the content.
And it's coming. All these tools are developing at a breakneck speed, and it's really exciting that a lot of the creative and technical barriers that exist today to this point will soon go away. We can all be creating, and that will be amazing.
And I guess a question that I hadn't put on my list, but I'm thinking now is, enterprise versus direct to consumer. What do you think is going to make the most positive impact worldwide? And I think there are many ways to answer the question, but we talk about creativity. Is this, an enterprise solution, or is this, giving headsets at a better price point to everyone around the world to be able to harness this technology? A question for the floor. Where do you think the best positioned future is?
I'll let you go.
But yeah, of course, both are massively important. On the enterprise side of things, also businesses need to be creating at a much faster speed and more effective cost basis, right? A lot of the XR training modules deployment that we have seen today often take a team of 10 designers and developers and multiple months, if not a much longer kind of iteration cycle, and that's not fast or cost effective enough, and hence you can't get over that novelty factor of what next now, where's my ROI? But with a lot of these creator tools, authoring tools come into the picture, and with generative AI coming into the scene as well, a lot of these tools today, even before the recent 2 months of development on the generative AI side of things, many companies are building tools with the assistance of deep learning models, algorithms to help people create experiences in 3D, whether that's asset modeling, rigging, animation, texturing, or it's prototyping, iteration. Many tools have been out there that we've been investing actively in to help organizations build these training modules and content faster, whether that's a medical simulation or a soft skills training module, or in many different areas. And soon we'll see how, when you put these creativity tools into consumer in every one of our hands, with the magic that will come will just be incredible. Imagine our children learning how to collaborate with machines from a young age. This will define their career, if there's still a concept of a career when they grow up. So absolutely, both ends are very important. It's really important to come back to the why of why we are advocating for this technology. What value are we delivering today, and where is this all going? And that's what we need to think about.
And do you think there is a future where everyone, like having a phone, could have a headset? Do you guys all believe that that's kind of where we could get to, or?
I mean, I think that we have to remember not to throw the baby out with the bathwater every time there's a new technology that hits the rails, right? And I think that's what we keep trying to do. Oh, this is brand new. Well, from a technology adoption time, it's not brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the instantiation of the PC, right? And recently I've heard lots of someone say, well, the breakthrough application for PCs was a spreadsheet. Well, so why was that? Because what was the predecessor to a computer? A calculator. So what is a spreadsheet? It's just a fancy calculator, honestly, right? So I think this is what we need to remember. There's a paradigm, there's a bridge to each of these transitions.
Yeah.
And so to your question, relative enterprise to consumer, it always goes enterprise to consumer. Always.
It doesn't have
And
to be
people,
either or,
and
you think?
everybody sitting here,
It doesn't have
and
to be
people,
either or,
and
you
everybody sitting here, who goes to work every day and uses technology for something? Let me see, raise your hand. Like, okay,
There's
you
some more
probably
hands than that, guys.
You
Come on.
probably
We know.
used a lot of this new technology at work
Yeah.
first, anyway, and you all are consumers. Everyone has that both sides of themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that participation cycle, that evolution cycle, will always start with the practical, and that's where we're getting value, and that's where the money is to grow those platforms, those no-code, low-code, the platforms that translate information, connectors. Their
Yeah.
teeth get cut on the hardest problems at work,
Yeah.
and then consumers then can benefit from those things.
One of the reasons that I decided to join Agora is Tony said something to me in the interview that was like, technology is either there to save your time or to waste your time. And one of those things are going to be done with your headsets, I believe. And there's nothing wrong with wasting time. We all love to do it. But it definitely is something. And Tony, you can elaborate if you want. You make some really great points on it. But it really stuck out with me is the reason why I like to work in tech. I either want to save people time and solve problems, or people want to hang out and have fun with their friends. Anything you want to add?
Yes,
I loved it.
I think the exact word I use is join us to changing people's life by bringing efficiency in their lives to save the time and also help them waste the time they just saved in the other side of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win, right? You can betting on both. Yeah, I totally agree on that one. I remember back in the internet, it is not until the Dreamweaver and Netscape, before that Netscape coming out, what we call the WYSIWYG, right? The editor comes out. Every writer suddenly can publish the web page.
Yeah.
That is exponential growth of content, right? The usage and use case content. I fully believe for us to truly see that thing, those kind of tool, and all the things packaged under the tool, right? You might using a low-code thing, but maybe Agora is inside, or other stuff is inside, basically, to make certain things much easier. So not a developer who has no experience about the culture and industry problem try to solve in your region. Because sometimes a lot of developer is not in the region right now, right? For cost reasons, right? They do not have the pain of what your problem, usually a workflow problem, right? Or a Immerse problem.
Yeah.
So you have to have the people who actually can feel the pain and can design that stuff and continue iterate. I hardly see the first time it just works, right? So it's always comes through continued iteration, right? So the ease of change is very important to the other thing. Right now, it's A, too expensive to create, B, it's too hard to change, right? Let's say you hire some programmer, build something fantastic, and then you realize you made a fatal mistake.
Yeah.
It's almost like a remodeling, right? You have to do it again, a big invoice, right? So I think that is where we need to unlock as an industry.
Yeah.
I do not believe either one company will solve it. It has to be an industry combined effort and start with maybe a common standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love about panels like this is that some people might see you all as competitors, but I really think you're very open and honest with each other, and you're willing to sit on stage and develop, differentiating products, but sit down and have the conversation to say, what are you all building towards, and why are you doing it? And I think you do all have that common goal, as Pearly said, of trying to give things to the masses and to make these available and to make positive change. One of the other questions we got here that wanted to be covered was verticals. At Agora, we focus a lot in healthcare and education. Now with myself focusing on Metaverse and gaming, where do you see the future of headsets? Do you think, again, maybe this is too close to the question we asked before, but what is your ideal use case when it comes to headsets? What's like, when you talk about the dream app, like Excel for the computer, what's the killer app for you, Tim?
The killer app for me is basically something that's going to help me in my everyday life. Something that's going to give me information as I walk down the street, as I drive my car, as I fix a car or fix a computer or whatever I'm doing. Something that can augment that information, so I don't have to keep so much up here.
What's funny is my brother is very much against Web3 and Metaverse. I'm sorry. But he messaged me the other day and said what he would love, he's an avid scuba diver, if he could get a goggle where when he was diving, he could see what the fish is, what his oxygen levels were, and kind of incorporate, so no one steal the idea. He'll hate that I've said it on stage. But that is the kind of usability that even someone who isn't a believer in the tech thinks, oh, wait, this could change my life. Correct. So there's always something.
It's
what about you
context?
guys? Yeah.
I think the killer app would be something that is adaptable and flexible to what I need to do on a daily basis. None of us have more hours to spend in front of our screens with digital devices. If anything, this shift has to make our real life better, more effective. Any moment that we spend interacting digitally that much more effective and efficient, so that we have more time to spend in real life with our loved ones and experience the beauty of the physical reality. I think that's how I see it. I don't see the dystopian outcome of us all living in simulation while the real world rots. That would just not happen. I have too much confidence in humanity for that to ever happen. And so, yeah, if I wake up in the morning, I feel the need to connect deeper with myself. A meditation in Iceland inside virtual reality would be fabulous for that, right? When I'm doing some in-person brainstorming session with team in physical reality, that's fantastic and always needed. But oftentimes for the rest of the year, I can do so in the shared virtual presence via virtual reality or hologram in my home office. And so a lot of these different use cases that are being imagined right now, we should really make sure that they are they're helping us save time. So ultimately, we have more time to do what's real. Although, of course, a lot of these virtual extensions and digital experiences will hopefully, and they will be much better and more meaningful than our Zoom calls, our screen time, our Reddit scrolling, or the time that we spend on our screens today will just be that much more profound and meaningful. And that comes with that democratization of access to amazing experiences that you share with your families and friends. This weekend, I'm going on a double day in VR chat with my friends that are really thousands of miles away, for example. Yeah, so it needs to be adaptable. We don't have all the answers, but that's why we have to empower people to create and build those use cases with the right intention in mind.
And I mean, you spoke to something really interesting that I think we see and hear so often, is that idea that if we keep developing in this direction, it will become a dystopian future. Like, do you think that a lot of people just aren't doing enough research, or there's just bad press out there? Why do you think that people really feel that that's the kind of future that we're trying to build, and how do we change their minds?
But we've read a lot of sci-fi novels, right? The Snow Crash, the Ready Player One, fantastic storytelling, and it feels scary because it's so close to human nature, right? They're prone to addiction and prone to choosing laziness over. Otherwise, I choose to be hopeful. I don't think there's another way, because I have 3 children. Many of us here are parents. Is there an alternative to believe in the dystopian outcome? No, that responsibility is entirely in our hands to make sure that we fund, support, and advocate for the right development of this industry, this trend and the computing paradigm shift, not to introduce necessarily more technology and screen time and distraction, but with all the benefit of the hindsight that we learned today from safe use and safe use of technology for our children. How do we translate that into designing the next platform where we are happy for them to be productive in using these technologies without all the hazards and concerns that we as parents do today? So much benefit of hindsight, and we have all that to take forward with us. There's no other option to develop a dystopian version, I choose to believe.
And Lisa, as an independent now, what are you seeing when it comes to the types of verticals that are getting the most focus, and maybe speaking as well to the dystopian future that people think is coming versus what the actual amazing outcomes could be?
I mean, I think it goes back to bridging the gap between humans and data, right? And there's so much about the world that is humans that we should understand that we don't understand, because the data is locked in all these various silos. So it'll be, I think it's a big combination of a lot of different technologies that'll help that. So we talk all the time about, me sitting in front of my 2D screen and wanting to just reach in there and take that data out and throw it on my desk so I can, and then if I'm going to go wander around, will it be in context, right? But, it's just a short story, thinking about the humanness and the human interactions. Like, I'm not a big television watcher. I didn't grow up on a TV. I didn't get properly desensitized to television, so sometimes I just can't watch it. My husband, on the other hand, loves to watch TV. So I got him a pair of Nreal Airs, and now I can read my book. We can hang out on the couch. He can put his earphones in and have his, TV on the screen. And we can be happier. And that's a very niche use case. I'm not going to expect that device to do something like a Magic Leap can do, or anything else. And I think that's the other fallacy, is like we always think about, we're looking for the thing that's going to replace the other thing. And there's not one ring to rule them all, right? You're still going to want to dock large on your computer sometimes. You're still going to want to toss that content to your TV and hang out with your family and friends. You're not going to give them all headsets and they're all, I mean, maybe you will, I don't know. It depends, but it's up to you. It's up to you. And I think from a technology perspective, we need to be thinking about humans in the mix, right? It is about the human experience. How are we going to deliver that? And with choice. We're not all drones. We're not all clones.
Yeah.
We need to, and that's difficult from a technology perspective, because it's much more difficult. It's much easier and more tempting to build for lowest common denominator, but then we dumb it all down. And I think we shouldn't dumb down the human experience.
Yeah.
I think it's our responsibility to make sure that it is responsive and it meets the varying needs. Not one person in this room is the same.
Did anyone down there have anything else to add? Brian, Tony?
I'll just make one comment. So I think if we think about, we're talking about spatial computers, so these computers consume content in 3D. So the kinds of verticals that I think will lend themselves to this are the kinds that are natively in 3D today. So that might be gaming, or it might be architectural engineering, construction, or medical use cases where you need to view an MRI or something. So I think that's naturally where we're seeing things go today, because it's just a better way to consume that content. But I think where we need to be thinking about 10 plus years from now is how all the applications and content we experience today daily in our lives on our phones or on our computers, how those will evolve in 3D. So or is there going to be a 3D native version of those things that kind of come in and disrupt a given category? So it's I think we're seeing an enterprise, because a lot of the content today is in 3D there first, and there's obviously a problem that can be solved, and people will pay for that. But I think over the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be everything we use today. Cool. We'll have a kind of spatial equivalent, and then there's a group of people that are probably born about now that are going to not want to use the 5-inch rectilinear screen to look at their content. They'll just see that as really primitive.
Tony? Anything else to add?
Sure, I'll just add on. Maybe we at the end, so we do a little
bit
long
we've
term.
got 20 seconds, guys.
Yeah, so I think the future of the community, people will find their common interest together more stronger than what binds you on the passport, the sovereign state, right? So you will actually have all those communities where you actually meet new friends, actually more involved in than whatever your passport enable you to do. That might be another thing to keep in mind. The society fabric will be reorganized in the virtual world.
Cool. I was hoping we could ask at least one question from the audience, but I think we're done for time. I don't know. Are we allowed to have any audience questions? Anyone? Does anyone have any questions? No one said no to me? Nothing? There's 7 of us up here. All right. Well, in that case, guys, thank you so much. And that's it.
Thank you.
Not one question.
This way.
Where's the music?